Okay, so a bunch of people have asked me about the...
By the way, Diablo is saved. The game's good now. Blizzard is finally listening. It was their last chance, and everything's going to be okay. Who else is ready to pre-order the new $99 expansion with a $120 pre-order Ultimate Lilith bonus, Lilith OnlyFans bonus edition that gives you 3-day early access for $135 a month.
Rework for the PTR, the itemization changes, etc.
Right.
Sort of, is it enough? Is Diablo 4 great now? Is it a 10 out of 10 and all these types of questions? And so I'm going to kind of break down my feeling on what I actually think about this. Now, in the previous video, I talked about and showed what the changes actually are and gave you a brief, 2-minute synopsis of if it was a thumb up or thumb down.
Yeah.
But for me, it really feels like this. It feels like the game has launched now in a state with the PTR where it feels like a 1.0, or the game is effectively out of beta. Things
Well, it's about time.
like the minions, for instance, actually now do something. You just take a look at this. The minions inherit all of your stats, so now they actually DPS like crazy, and they're just significantly better, even if I don't help them at all. Just significantly more aggressive and better than they used to be prior to any of these changes, and that is significant for anyone that actually likes the summoner style of gameplay.
Yeah.
But this is just one such example of times that I would go into Diablo 4 before and be unimpressed or uninspired with some of the gameplay that I had experienced. Necromancer minions being one of these common things we've seen since the beginning of the game. And so
yeah, I feel like Necromancer minions, they were just like... It's like going from PoE to Diablo 4. It was like, man, Diablo 4 really had like a lack of quality of life.
that theme of, oh, I didn't like it what it was before, and now it is what it should
Yeah, Necromancer's
have been,
finally a Necromancer.
Common reoccurring
Imagine
theme
that.
for me. Another example of this would be the Helltides. The Helltides now basically have what I would consider probably the highest density in the game. Once you get this threat meter
That's what
going,
it should be.
they've taken a lot of the mechanics from the other seasons and thrown them into here. But just the amount of mobs themselves, like the actual, like I say, the density of the mobs feels like now what you would think a Blood Tide actually should have been.
Exactly.
Just a whole bunch of minions overrunning an area. The XP is good, the farming's good, so it's better, way better. And Helltide was usually like my least favorite part of the game. Now it's one of the better parts.
I was the same way. It was weird because like Helltide, I liked Helltide until Season 2 came out, and then I realized how much better the Blood Tide was. And I was like, okay, well, why do I want to do Helltide whenever it's just like a worse version of this?
So while I was live streaming, I just finished a 151-hour straight live stream.
Oh my God.
Right, that's why I have a bed in the background and everything. And we did our first subathon on the stream.
Jesus.
While we were doing that, I did a lot of testing this PTR. And one of the common questions I was always getting was, well, what's the point of items and what's the point of, you know, the core being fixed if there's still no in-game, etc. And one of the analogies or metaphors that I would have to kind of come back to is, well, let's say you were overweight. And what you wanted to do was be a shredded bodybuilder. Like the very first thing you're going to do is
try to at least lose 10 pounds.
Reduce your weight. And I kind of feel like that's what they were doing with this here. Like you can't really make the in-game and like have all of these other things that are built upon your pre-game, like actually having items and what your character's power structure is. They're obviously going to have to rebalance everything, etc. So I think
that's a really good way to look at it. I agree with them.
Being the itemization in the core of your character correct is the first step. You gotta lose the weight, then you can even see a six-pack once you acquire one.
Right.
So I think that was basically what's happening here.
I wouldn't know, but yeah, that's what I hear.
They added a couple new in-game things like the Greater Rift farming. So I think Greater Rifts will be divisive. I think some people will like them because there's no objectives. You just get into the rifts.
You just kill shit.
I even forget what they call them, the pit. Okay, but it's basically Greater
It's
Rifts.
the rift.
Get into it.
The guy literally called them rifts accidentally on the official live stream. They're rifts.
Kill things, you go to the next level, you kill things very quick, very efficient, straight to the boss. It's just fast, fun, arcade style gameplay. You just blow through things. So some people are going to like that. Some people are going to see it as uninspired and directly from D3. And both of these takes would basically be correct at this point.
They are. That's true.
But I don't really think we're going to see much of like ultra in-game mechanics that like seasonal-based in-game mechanics until we had this itemization core correct. We have the new level 200 Uber bosses, etc., which is, you can probably argue new in-game, but they're kind of like the other bosses, but just stronger. Right.
Sure.
So I think now that we have what is, in my opinion, a much better core, they should be able to build upon that core going forward. So if you're wondering that yourself, like, okay, well, the items are there, but is the rest of the game? Well, the rest of the game is sort of what the rest of the game was. But the itemization itself and the building of your character is what it should have been.
I think that, yeah, it's going to take them a long time to, like, I don't think they're ever going to be able to make an end game as robust as PoE. And I don't even think that's their goal. I think really what Diablo should focus on is creating like a core 10 to 20 like good class fantasies, and then building off of those and letting people experience that class fantasy with good bosses that test the different classes in different ways. That's what should really be the focus, because they can never beat PoE, because PoE can just develop way faster than they can.
There is one other change that I don't think is making the rounds in terms of how large I believe it actually is. And I could be wrong about this, but this is just something I'm noticing, which is, okay, so you have these items right here. These are just the base items that I start with. But every now and then, you're going to get these greater affixes. And items are now tradable. The base items are tradable. And uniques are tradable as well, just not the uber uniques, right? So because of that, and because of the fact that greater affixes are fairly rare, but you can get multiple of these. Like you can get a unique that has all 4 as greater affixes, for instance. This sort of revitalizes the trading economy.
Thank
and makes
God.
it where acquiring these greater affixes gives you tremendous value of each one of these items. And
that's the way it used to be in Diablo 3, man. Like if you got an item with like a certain good affixes, bro, you just made rent. Like that shit, you could sell that for like $250, $300.
Uniques and legendaries are tradable now. Now, rares are basically worthless, other than crafting materials. You're gonna need them and salvage them for crafting materials, etc. But
it's good.
The legendary and uniques now will probably have an economy based around them, and because of the way that there's now these uber bosses like level 200 ones, etc. And the materials are probably even more important for that regard, because as you kill the new ubers, you're getting the resplendent sparks from killing them that will also give you the ability to craft an uber unique, which is non-tradable. For instance, you sort of have reasons to trade, sell things in order to acquire materials, etc. So I think this is going to have...
Yeah, you get, like creating an in-game economy, I think is really important, because like the reason why it matters a lot is that what I didn't like about Reaper of Souls is whenever I got an item that wasn't as good as what I had, but it was close, I couldn't sell it. So like the only win condition I could have would be when I get an item that's better than what the current item I have is. But if you have a game like PoE or Diablo 3, like base Diablo 3, if I get an item and it's almost as good as what I have, or it's a little bit better, I can replace what I have and then I can sell the old one. It feels a lot better to do.
Impact on the long term of trading in a very healthy way for people that like that side of the game. Because I remember some of the comments we were seeing in the beginning of Diablo 4 was that trading's dead. It's open world, but a single player game. Like some of these sort of meme comments that were like little, correct, a little harsh, but correct, basically.
They were all true.
The impact that I think we're having on opening up the legendary and uniques, because back in the day when we were saying they'd show this rework, etc., one of the questions I had asked was, are these going to be tradable? And it was like, no, this isn't tradable, etc. But
I think it's so ridiculous that things aren't tradable in Diablo 4, and they went with that at the beginning. And like, I think even the Uber Uniques should be tradable, to be honest with you. I think they should be, because like those are the items you want to buy the most, right? So it would make sense. And like having those items that you can like trade around and move around, that's great. And like if you can't manage RMT in a game that has a $70 entrance fee, just call it quits. Just give up. Just give up. Shut down the game. Get rid of it.
It's like they're actually opening that up, which is significant in my opinion for people that like to interact with other players. So that's just one like wave impact we're going to see from this earthquake here. TLDR is trading's better.
Great.
I also quite like the masterworking, and because the masterworking doesn't take a crazy amount of the materials from the pit, and the pit actually is decently generous in terms of how many they give you as you go through it, even at the lower levels. I think the masterworking isn't going to be a frustrating farming part of the game, for instance, like we see with Hell Tides. The only part that I could be wrong about for this is the veiled crystals that you get from salvaging rare equipment, for instance, could be slightly annoying because you're not really getting rare equipment as much as the rare.
That's a good point. Yeah, because like if you're reducing the amount of loot, yeah, that's a very good point.
Really have as much of an impact. Now, I could salvage
Yeah, this is Blizzard's last chance to fix Diablo 4. Keep that in mind, guys. True.
all materials, and I'll do this just here for the video real fast. So if I go here and I salvage all my materials, okay, destroy all my
You didn't get
materials.
any
Well,
veiled.
that's all my legendaries, etc. But there's no veiled crystals. But when you actually look at veiled crystals in order to farm them, it says from rare or better equipment. So, you know, the getting veiled crystals.
Yeah, it's like if you change the way that the amount of gear that drops in the game is going to work, and you go from like 10 to 1, and then there's a resource that you need that requires the things that you were getting at a rate of 10, you need to change that down to 1. He's totally right.
Rare. So there's still a use for rare items, even if it's just for salvage material to buff up your legendary items. Now, if I was forced to have a complaint still about the game, I would say that I don't necessarily enjoy farming the boss materials. However, that being said, if I think their goal is, no, we want you to farm these boss materials, they just are trying to make it their job to make sure it's more enjoyable to acquire the materials in order to actually farm the bosses. This is why I'm noticing you kill goblins, etc. You're getting Livian Steel. On the occasion, you'll kill like an elite mob and you'll drop a boss material, etc. I'm noticing like the world bosses, you know, gain Distilled Fear, Exquisite Blood, all these things. So it does factually seem like I'm getting more of the boss materials. And during the leveling process, I'm sure I can start acquiring some of these as I pursue to level 100, so that by the time I'm at level 100, I probably have enough for maybe like one boss rotation with a couple of these bosses, etc. Plus with trade, maybe being a little bit more revitalized in the economy, that will give us more of a focus on that for trade, as well as interacting with other players, so you can get in those rotations for those boss farms, etc. You have one set, you get 3 other people who have the one set, now you can kill the boss 4 times, for instance. I think we're going to see a lot more of the types of players who just farmed it themselves now interacting with more players, as there is more of a reason to, both through trade.
Yeah, I don't know how they should handle boss rotations, because like I think that having to make a group, and like people should want to do bosses and test bosses out themselves rather than having to do them in a group. But whenever you can literally 4x your rewards, people are going to want to do them with a group, and you would feel stupid not doing them with a group. So how do you handle that? Like, I don't know what the solution for that is, because like at one point, like it's really good that people want to play together and group up to do the dungeons. And like it should be rewarded that people want to play together. But whenever that reward is so high that like it's just, that's an insane, like make it 2x, yeah. Even PoE doesn't know? Well, they're trying something new with that, because like the Uber bosses created the same dynamic where like I assume that PoE, you know, they're changing the way those keystones work, because anybody who wasn't running Uber bosses was selling their invitations. And I think the same thing would happen like with Diablo in a different way. So it's like, how do you get people to like play the game naturally without feeling like they have to do something? I don't know. Increase difficulty and reward for solo? Well, the solo is already naturally harder.
Used to that, and then start doing it with boss farming groups, etc. Overall,
lowered mats.
I'm actually pretty positive about what I've seen from the PTR. I said this in the previous video. I like it quite a lot. My impression of it is
maybe it's not important to fix.
Basically,
maybe
what
it's okay the way
the game should have probably been, and now they're coming
They'll
back
fix it in Diablo
from
5.
the deficit and building upon it, and we'll have to see how the Season 4 mechanics, etc., interact with it. I wonder if they have a lot more planned for Season 4, or if the stuff on PTR we're seeing is basically the entirety of Season 4. I don't know. I don't know if any of us really know at this point, so I'm curious to see if they have even more things planned to add on to this, as I do feel like the base of the game is much more solid.
It does seem like they're really getting their shit together, but I said this in Season 2, and then Season 3 happened. So, like, you know, I'll play Season 4, I'll try it out, we'll see what it's like, and if it's fun, I'll keep playing it, and if it's not, I'll play something else. It's not really a big deal, right? I mean, I've already bought the game, I own the game, so I don't need to do or change anything. So, yeah, fuck.
At this point. And if you are someone who's a summoner style, the one to play Necromancer with minions, and you're like, why is the Necromancer like a caster, basically like a dark caster, you know, Bone Spear and all that, and blood magic?
It's a caster with no mobility.
To be, you know, the crux of what people were using. Now the minions are actually like pretty banging. So I like that change as well. And I'm noticing I'm liking more of the changes, and they seem to
Yeah.
be giving into allowing your characters to have some power behind them. I mean, I've seen people doing like the double Dust Devil swing thing for
Yeah.
Barbarian that's just covering the entire screen. The minion Necromancers are now strong. So they're giving into that power fantasy a little bit with each of the characters. And I think that's a pretty good step in the right direction, to use an old line. The next step for me is really to make a new character and do the leveling process. I think I'll probably do that tomorrow, as I'm taking the day off stream since I did 151 hours straight. Tomorrow, I think I will make a fresh character and do the leveling process from 1 to 100 on the Diablo 4 character and see how the PTR changes affect the leveling process. And that will tell us how the rest of the game is actually going. But in terms of how it feels currently from the PTR boosted characters, I'm quite liking what I'm seeing. But that's just it. Love you all. I'll see you on the next video.
Fuck yeah. I'm really glad they're improving the game.
Okay, so a bunch of
I am. Because I want Diablo 4 to be good. I know some people might think that I'm paid by Path of Exile to make Diablo 4 look bad, but the truth is that I really do enjoy the game. I had fun playing it. I've played every season besides the third season, and I leveled to 100. I killed all the bosses. I did all the stuff. I killed all the things. It was fun. Hopefully it's good. PTR has been better. Feels like 1.0. Yeah, I just really hope it's improved. I do. And the thing is that I already own the game, guys. So it doesn't take much to make Asmon happy. It doesn't take a lot, but it takes something, and they didn't even have that, and maybe now they do. I will definitely play the new Diablo 4 season, but I mean, who knows how good it's going to be or anything like that. I have no idea. It's good to see them improving the foundation of the game, which is the itemization. That's what matters the most.